Hello and welcome. On today's tutorial video, the first of probably multiple, I'm going to talk about setting up GitHub Desktop for Total War, the Total War assembly kit for any game. This works for any game. I'm not going to go into all the reasons why you would want to do that, but essentially the GitHub Desktop is a way to version control and source control your mods so that you can jump between modded data and vanilla data within the assembly kit without having to uninstall, reinstall, verify integrity of files or anything like that. You don't have to keep a bunch of folders as backups. You just use this app and very simply press a couple of buttons to change between data versions. First things first, go to desktop.github.com. Link is up at the top. Press download, whichever download version applies to you. Once it's done downloading, well, actually, not once it's done downloading. Once it's done downloading, I guess press play and then watch me go over how it works. So GitHub Desktop on my computer is already set up to have a Three Kingdoms assembly kit repository. And a repository is a bank of data. And every bank of data, it's just like a folder on the computer, essentially. That's all a repository is. It even points out that's where the repository links to. That's the folder on my computer that it links to. Every repository can have multiple branches, and a branch is a different source of that data, is a different version of that data. So I have the master data, that's vanilla, and I also have VFU-basic, which is my faction unlocker for Three Kingdoms. So when I press this button, it actually changes out all the vanilla data and replaces it with the faction unlocker data. So when I open up the assembly kit, it's now the unlocker stuff. I'll show this to you real quick. I'm going to open up Steam, open up Dave, and it's going to take a second because it's weird right now and does this weird twitching thing. Once it's done, I'm going to go to my faction unlocker pinned group, and in front end faction leaders we can see that there's only the 15 vanilla factions. If I back out, change my branch to VFU-basic, open up Dave, again a quick twitch, and we're off. Go back there, we see all of these new factions, the 22 unlocked factions from the faction unlocker. I should probably change these. And that's as simple as it is for me if I want to change between modded data and vanilla data. To set this up locally, actually before we go on, let me show you one more thing. Every branch can have commits, and commits are different updates to the files in that version, in that source. So I have a commit that was my first update for this mod. It just unlocked all the different factions. And then my latest version, which made the Yellow Turban Rebels and Han Empire playable, I have the new versions of the files that I edited. To make your own repository, go to GitHub Desktop, press File, New Repository, and I'm going to use the Total War Warhammer 2 assembly kit as my example. So just go to your PC, follow Steam, Steam Apps, Common, whichever game you're doing this for, go into Assembly Kit, Raw Data, and DB, and this is where it'll be saved. In GitHub Desktop, like I said, File, New Repository, type in whatever name you want as the repository name, and then on Local Path, press Choose, and I already have this targeted because I just did this, but select that folder I just mentioned, Assembly Kit /Raw Data /DB, select folder. Press Create Repository, and then we can see in that folder I had just opened up, there's a new folder inside of it called Warhammer 2-AK. It'll be whatever you named the repository. Go in, select the file in the folder, press Ctrl-X, and paste it out here. Likewise, grab the new folder and delete it. The reason being we want the repository to be this folder, not that subfolder, but it'll automatically make the subfolder. We have to tell it to back out of it. Go back to GitHub Desktop, and it'll tell you that it can't find this folder. That's fine. Just press Locate. It'll target the same folder we just selected, and press Select Folder, making sure that .git is in there. Select folder. And now we see 2,604. Wow, that was way higher than I meant. 2,649 changed files, and these are all the vanilla files from the assembly kit. We have to make a new commit, so make sure they're all checked off with that box. Type in a summary. I always type in initial commit for the first commit I do, and then press commit to master. Now what this is doing is GitHub is going through all of these files and saving them as they are when they're first created at this moment, so that later on if we change abilities.xml, or for this example agent subtypes.xml, it doesn't save a wholly new version of that, but GitHub saves the changes to each file. If nothing changes, it doesn't save anything. If there's a new file added, it saves that file and memorizes it as it is. If we remove a file, it gets rid of the memory of that file. It keeps the memory, but it makes it non-existent in the newest commit. And if we just change one line, it'll recognize that as well. So now we have our vanilla branch with all of the vanilla data. And what we want to do is make a modded branch. And this will be our first bank of modded data. So press branch, new branch. I'm going to call mine testing-mod. And in it, it copies the vanilla data from the master branch and just pulls it over. So it copies the two commits, so we don't have to start from scratch. I'm going to make my first change, going into Warhammer 2 assembly kit. And I'm going to add a new agent subtype. I'm going to call this testing subtype. Put a space there so it doesn't crash. Put that there. Put a space there so it doesn't yell at me. I meant yell at me, not crash. And then apply. Yay. After I'm done my changes in Dave, I have to export changes to binary, because that's the process of taking the data from this local version of Dave and transitioning that into this file. And I'm safe to back out, and when I open up GitHub Desktop, it recognizes 3 changed files. TW80 validation and update commands don't really matter, but I'd commit them anyway, just because it doesn't involve me having to press between a bunch of things a bunch of times. And I'm going to make a new commit called added testing subtype. In agents subtypes. And I'm going to commit, and this is going to take significantly less time since it's 3 changed files, not 2,649. Doesn't really matter. And we can see in this file that yellow dot means that it's recognizing a change to an existing file. Back here we have the green pluses. The yellow dot means it recognizes just a change in a file. So now it's recognized our new commit version. But say I don't want that new subtype anymore. I want to get rid of it. We could go in, manually remove it, and then commit again on top of it. Or we can just use a built-in revert feature in GitHub Desktop. Right-click the commit you want to get rid of and press revert this commit. And it'll make a new commit that decommits the commit previous. So what this does is it undoes the changes in each of the files. It reverts it back to how it was. And in case you were wondering, in GitHub Desktop, a gray bar means nothing was changed, or white bar if you're in light mode. I don't even know if this has a light mode. Green row means that this is the new version of that data. Red means what the old version was. And simple as that, when I pop back into the Warhammer 2 assembly kit, subtypes, there will no longer be my testing underscored subtype. And this is about all that's needed to know for setting up a repository on your local computer. I'm going to go on at this point to talking about setting up GitHub to link it to the github.com website so that it's online rather than just local. But before I do that, in case you wanted to scoot a couple of pointers, make one branch for each mod that you're working on. If you have many, go and do so. If you want to save old vanilla data, you can also make a new branch for old vanilla data, or you could just keep the commits, and each commit will be called the current version. But it's easier to go between branches than it is commits, obviously, because we have to press revert, and then we'd have to revert the revert, and that's a whole mess. And then I would also keep one repository per game you're working on, 3K-AK, or this one's going to be Warhammer 2-AK, but it's just called DB because that's the name of the folder locally. DB. It'll automatically name itself to that. But say you're in a team and you want to work together and you want to have these files shared between computers, you can publish the repository. All you got to do is make sure you're signed in, file options, sign in, and then press publish repository, give it a name, Warhammer 2-AK for me, keep it private. Oh, I already made it. Give me 1 second. All right. And then publish. It's going to take a second because it's taking all of these 2,000 files and turning them into the web data, pushing them to their own servers, and saving it. But now that it's done so, we have a new button, Fetch Origin, and when I go to GitHub, I can see this new folder. The URL will be github.com/username/repository name, and it's all of the files from within GitHub on my computer. From within that repository, it even recognizes the 2 commits that I made. And it's pretty cool, because if you have 2 different computers, if you have 2 different people working on 2 different computers, you can both have a local clone of this repository, and you can do that by using clone or download. And then you can press open in desktop. You can each have a cloned copy of this public repository or private repository. And then in GitHub, you can press, I'll show you. So this is going to simulate somebody adding a file from a different computer. I'm just making a commit on the repository on github.com side, but imagine somebody else changed something on a different computer. You would go to GitHub Desktop, and when you first load up, just press Fetch Origin, and it'll say you can pull origin. There's 1 new commit. That's what that 1 and down means. And then I pulled the commit, and now I can see create exclamation dummy.xml, and that's now on my computer. But say I don't want that, I can just delete it. It'll notice that change. I'm going to keep that name. And I'll commit to master. It just vanished. I'm not sure why that vanished. There it is. Okay, delete dummy.xml. And then now the button push origin turns up, and it's 1 commit to push out. And push just means you're taking the data locally and pushing it to the website. And once I do that, I can go back to this, refresh, and that file's gone. And it says the latest commit was delete dummy.xml. And using that simple functionality, you can communicate modded data between 2 different computers super easily. I hope this was informative for you. I hope you learned something. I hope my presentation was good enough. If there are any pointers or tips that you have for me, please let me know. I know I'm stuttering a little bit. I'm trying to get better with that. And look forward to any future videos doing Total War tutorials. I prefer the format of videos because I can put words to mouth. I can put mouth to words. I can put action to words. It's easier for me to speak than it is to type because I don't have to think so much about making sure it's coming off the right way. And it requires less editing than using images in a text file. So I think I definitely prefer this style of tutorializing, and I hope to do some more in the future. Alright, ciao.